I had a very normal pregnancy. Ryan was born normal and experienced what's called blue spells. Basically means he stopped breathing and his whole body turned blue. That is an indication of a heart defect. In that, we learned that Ryan would have to undergo open heart surgery. I told Ron we felt like that we were kind of on death watch. I mean, I can remember sleeping with my hand in his bassinet, just so that I could feel him breathing, just to make sure that he was okay. And so it was a very stressful time. So they were gonna crack open his chest and put him on a heart bypass machine and operate on that tiny little heart. That was more than we could even comprehend. And at that time, we had no choice but to cling to the Lord. His surgeons really believed that after his open heart surgery that he would thrive, that was the thing that was going to change. The problem is he didn't. He wasn't gaining weight. He couldn't sit up straight. So all the normal things, that benchmarks that he should meet, he wasn't meeting. And so our pediatrician began to think towards a syndrome. And Ryan was diagnosed with a syndrome called CHARGE syndrome, which basically means that part of the 8th chromosome didn't form right. And so for each letter of the word charge is something wrong with or an abnormality that these children have, that Charge has. He had a heart condition, he had blind, it was considered legally blind, coloboma of the eyes, delayed growth and development. But we got to the E, which is ears. Ryan was 18 months old, and this was the last piece of the puzzle, and so the geneticist sent us to an audiologist, and we were like, oh, we got this, he's good, he's not deaf. Yes, he was. And so that was the diagnosis that rocked our worlds, because everything else could be fixed and this one could not. We drove home and I remember thinking they're wrong. There's no way he's deaf. And what I realized is I had to grieve what was not quote unquote normal, and grieve that he'd never heard my voice. He never heard me sing to him. He'd never heard me tell him the million times that we said, I love you. And so I really went through the grieving process with that diagnosis, and God graciously walked us through each step until we came to acceptance. And so then we began the journey into what it looks like to raise a deaf child. I just did not know any deaf people. I didn't know anything about deaf culture. And the Lord connected us to our local school program called the Deaf and Hard of Hearing program. And it was a birth through age 3 program. And we had a sign language teacher that would come to our house, and she would teach Ryan sign language. And she would also teach me sign language. So Ryan and I are learning at the same time. But I began to see his little world open up. And I began to see things make sense to him. And what God revealed to me is that he's gonna have an amazing life. It's just different. So I reached out to our pastor naturally, and I said, hey, Pastor Tommy, do you mind if I bring Ryan and some of our deaf friends, and do you mind if I interpret the service? And he was like, absolutely, like no question, come. He was casting the vision for the next year. And as he's casting the vision, he said, I believe that God in year 2004 is going to start a language ministry. And he says he held out his hand, a language ministry, and there I am, kind of at the end of his hand interpreting, and called us into his office the next day and said, listen, I don't know what this looks like. I don't know anything about the deaf community, but we are in full support of you. We want you to start a deaf ministry here and grow that. And that's why I love working with Shine On, because that's our goal, is to give churches the tools that they need to be able to minister to those families that experience disability. Individuals with disabilities just want to be loved. They want to be shown love. They want to experience love. They just want to be treated like you would treat any other person. I think if more people and more churches could grasp that understanding that they're so valuable and they have so much to teach us, it's so simple, but it's so profound. The impact that they can have on our lives if we'll just invest in them and take that step to love them. It's not intimidating or overwhelming. They just need love. Brian is doing great. He's taking online classes. He works for his dad at church. He loves writing stories. What this next part of his life exactly looks like, we're not sure, but God's got amazing plans in store for him. And one of my favorite verses that kind of became my life verse once the Lord brought me to it was 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 3. But it said, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies, and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our afflictions, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any kind of affliction through the comfort we ourselves receive from God."